Here's the harsh truth that nobody really wants to hear, but hey, I'm going to say it anyway. Your strategy is only as effective as your body's capacity to receive and feel comfortable. And this is why your nervous system regulation and expansion defines your energetic availability for success. Now, it doesn't guarantee success, but without the energetic capacity of the nervous system to feel at ease, you will be sabotaging your success in worst possible ways. You are listening to Soul Business Alchemy, the podcast for conscious entrepreneurs, quantum creators, and new wave leaders, hosted by me, Riya. This is where energy meets strategy and business becomes effortless, magnetic, and wildly profitable. Nervous system has become a bit of a buzzword in the personal development and even business development space. And sometimes we tend to think about our nervous system as something magical and some kind of beast difficult to tame, or that we need some special techniques in order to regulate it. But I'm here today to give you a bit of a practical breakdown of what you need to incorporate in your own inner work as an entrepreneur, as a new era pioneer, in order to feel at ease in your business with growth and expansion. And here's the thing. In today's world, regulation of nervous system may not be enough. And this is a bit strange to hear perhaps, because you may think, well, if my nervous system is regulated, surely what's gonna be the problem? But here's the thing. By the very nature of who we are not conditioned to receive the amount of information, energy that running a modern business, especially with the online element, requires. Because if you think about who our grandparents or great-grandparents were exposed to in the course of their lives, perhaps in the work or business or personal life, it was possibly just a community, the neighborhood in the city or the village, and maybe they would come across 1,000 people in their life, if that. And usually those people would come from a similar background. They would have probably similar appearance, similar creed. It was a bit of a bubble, and people felt safe because they knew what to expect. Now, as a modern day entrepreneur who puts themselves on the internet, exposed to frequency of strangers who can have a completely different perspective on whatever you are expressing your perspective on, who can be perhaps critical or come from a different culture where perhaps the language is different and certain thoughts are expressed in a different way, you may go into a nervous system collapse just by the amount of energy that you're exposed to, because 1,000 views on TikTok or Instagram is pretty much nothing. That's a poorly performing video. A well-performing video could put you in front of 100, 150,000, sometimes 1 million people. That's a lot of energy from a lot of human beings, and those human beings have opinions. So it's almost inevitable that you need more than just a regulating nervous system, meaning getting back in touch with the feeling of safety connected to perhaps certain traumas. We need to go a step further and expand the capacity of our nervous system. So it's got the bandwidth, it's got the capacity to deal with the environment and the circumstances that it hasn't been wired to do. But let's get back into the basics. What is the nervous system? What's the definition of regulation versus expansion? And most importantly, how does nervous system dysregulation show up in business and what you can do about that? So first of all, let's break down what is nervous system regulation. And it's as simple as feeling safe, present, and capable of staying within a felt experience, staying present, even if that experience is uncomfortable. And the important aspect here is that uncomfortable does not mean unsafe. I want to make this distinction because very often it will feel unsafe, but it's not objectively unsafe. So putting yourself out there on the internet isn't unsafe. Setting boundaries with a client isn't unsafe. It's, walking through a dodgy neighborhood after dark, that is objectively unsafe. All of these business scenarios are at the most uncomfortable. But here's the trick. Our brain does not know the difference, and our body does not know the difference. If it feels threatened, this threat does not even have to be a real threat. It could be just a perceived threat. So in essence, this is something that you can start already working with. Whenever you getting signals from the body that something feels unsafe, and we talk about how this can show up in the body in a second, please know that it actually is possibly just uncomfortable, and that you can absolutely rewire your body and your nervous system to expand your comfort zone. Not get out of your comfort zone, expand your comfort zone. So situations that may have been uncomfortable in the past, I don't know, public speaking or commanding certain prices in your business, will become as normal as breathing, picking up a glass of water, or taking your dog for a walk. It will just be absolutely normal. But there is one more thing that I want to make you aware of, is that the nervous system we talk about is not the central nervous system. Very often I hear people talk about central nervous system regulation. That's incorrect, because what we're actually working with is the autonomic nervous system, the ANS, which is a completely different part of your body's intelligence, because your central nervous system is basically just your brain and spinal cord. This is the part that controls voluntary movement, conscious thinking, and processing. And it's not what gets dysregulated in business or visibility or in money work. So what we are dealing with is the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, which constitute our ANS, autonomic nervous system. And this is the part that is very much subconscious, emotional, energetic. This is the part that controls your sense of safety, your response to stress, as well as your ability to receive. And basically, what we need to understand is that your nervous system is not a mindset problem. This is nothing to do with your mindset. And I say it like a broken record. I believe that most entrepreneurs have, by the very nature of being entrepreneurs, have got a good mindset, because they're out there, they're taking the risk, they trying new products, releasing new services, they are walking the uncharted path. So to me, that doesn't sound like a mindset problem. But what it will be is basically your biological as well as energetic system that is designed to keep you safe, kicking in, because it detects a threat, even if that threat isn't a real threat, but it's a perceived threat, and then it pulls you into a survival state. And when we talk about survival state, there will be 4 basic responses that your nervous system will go into when activated: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And let's look at how each one of them shows in the business settings and how it shows up in the body. So the fight state is actually something that I see the least as a business coach, although it has been historically my default response to having situations that would put my nervous system in a state of activation. So the state of fight feels like when you are tight, you tense, you agitated, you angry at a situation, and then what you do from that place of survival, you have extreme control. You try to control and micromanage every aspect of your business. You overwork because you feel like you have to put extra hours. You have a tendency for perfectionism. You are hustling. You are pushing launches. You're just doing a lot, but you are not doing stuff mindfully. You're just churning out stuff for the sake of stuff. And this is like historically more of a male response rather than female. But there is now, both males and females operating within feminine and masculine energy and a mix of them. So, nervous system does not know gender, and it can happen to anyone. But this is basically how we are often even taught business, that kind of, hustle and grind and do more. And the fight response of the nervous system is really linked to this success not being an actual success, because it's like a success without a happiness, which is like the ultimate state of failure. So you can achieve a lot, but you're actually not present, you're not in it. And even if things happen well, then you're not there to appreciate it. But to be fair, I don't think fight is the worst response of a nervous system from a business perspective, because in that state, you're actually just getting stuff done. However, the price you can pay for it is burnout. And it's that kind of lack of purpose where you feel like you've lost your meaning and you do a lot and it's like, what's the point of it all? And sometimes more and more so these days, where your clients are sensitive to frequency, they're more sensitive to subtle signals that your energy field sends, this lands less and less. So it can actually be counter-effective. And I've seen it, I've witnessed it with clients who try to rush through producing, batching content, etc. But somehow the heart and soul is not in that content, and that content doesn't fly. Or, people just try to quickly fill up a program or stack the value, but if the presence isn't in it, then very often it somehow, somewhere fails. So that's the fight mode of the nervous system. Now, the other modes I see way more often in my experience with clients as a energetics of business coach. And I feel that flight and freeze are super, super common, especially the freeze. If this episode activated something in you and you're ready to build real momentum, Soul Business School is where this work goes way deeper and becomes your reality. It's my business expansion membership for soul-led entrepreneurs who want to scale with strategy and energetics without burning out or forcing what no longer fits. Inside, you'll get access to monthly live momentum coaching calls, high-level business trainings, real-time energetic recalibrations, as well as a private community of multidimensional entrepreneurs who simply get it. This is not a course, it's not a copy-paste formula. It's your space to grow in alignment, in community, and in momentum month after month. You find the link in the show notes, or you can visit riyalovegard.com to step into the field. Let's look at the freeze response, because that's in my opinion, this is the most common survival mode that a lot of, especially female entrepreneurs, enter. So this is where you feel numb and shut down. And basically, this is where you're almost like in this mode of, I don't know where to start, I'm waiting for clarity, and you're not doing anything. You're not posting, you're not selling, you're just in this perpetual wait mode, because when you try to do something, it's almost like this invisible force is holding you back to your place, or you literally like freeze in motion. And by the way, that can happen at any point in business when our nervous system is overwhelmed. And I actually had a very recent freeze response in my nervous system that I hopefully overcome quite quickly. And that was as a reaction to one of my videos that went viral on Instagram and was completely misunderstood, because I was speaking very, let's say, rare and weird sounding extraterrestrial languages, light languages, and people completely misunderstood it, but it was going viral. It had, at the time when I turned off the comments and then deleted it, it had over 120,000 views, and my body completely shut down. I was just there staring in space, not knowing how to manage all of that negativity that I didn't expect. It wasn't my first video that went viral. I've had TikTok viral videos, I've had other Instagram viral videos, but because of the, let's say, weirdness of how these particular light languages that I was showing off sound, I did not expect that amount of negativity, and it made me question, like, why am I even doing it? What am I doing it for? Happened over a weekend, and I was recording, my nervous system response in real time to people inside the Soul Business School membership, literally giving them a double down of how it looks like in real time right after I've recovered from this freeze where I was just completely like, I don't know what to do. I just got into a shutdown mode. But the thing is, once you are aware of it, and I was aware enough to recognize that nervous system response, you can get out of it quite quickly. The problem becomes when this state is sustained. And I see that, unfortunately, very often in clients who go into a prolonged freeze mode because something somewhere about running an online business became perceived threat, became unsafe. So if you see yourself going into this kind of freeze mode, going completely numb and shutting down, the good news is you can rewire that and you can get out of it. But first step to transcendence is awareness. So in order to transcend something, you have to become aware of it first. So my question is, are you seeing yourself in a freeze state, or maybe it's a fight? Or maybe it's both. And we have a couple more nervous system responses that I want to discuss. So the flight state is, again, quite common. I see that quite a lot. Is that panicky, and which kind of sometimes is displayed as a bit of avoidance. Sometimes it's a bit of like spinning or going around like chasing your own tail, which may look like constant rebranding, pivoting. So I think flight kind of sometimes even goes hand in hand with fight. So first you throw the kitchen sink at some strategy and you mindlessly just go. It doesn't work. Okay, quickly, let's move away. Let's kind of go to a different kind of route. So let's, I was doing TikTok doesn't work. Let's do a Facebook group. And it basically is that constant running, and sometimes also running from success. Sometimes it's almost like getting yourself distracted with everything else apart from what actually moves your business forward. That happens a lot, and you may feel like it's, again, both freeze and flight state could be explained, or, lack of discipline, or perhaps I'm just trying new things and I'm just experimenting. You can dress it up logically as much as you want, but once you recognize it, that is actually a nervous system response, that you're not feeling safe about certain situation, then at least there's something you can do about it. And I'll tell you in a second what you can do. And then there is a nervous system response that usually comes as a result of any conflict situations. And this happens quite a lot in client dynamics, and that's the fawn response. This is where we are overcompensating, overgiving, trying to sometimes undercharge. And this is when we're not setting boundaries. So you say yes when you actually mean no, you're pricing low, you just do anything not to stand your ground, not to take your space, but to please everybody else. And you, even if it's at your own detriment. So that happens a lot because it's like that response of like animals. And by the way, if you do have animals, you can see those states very easily in animals. In humans, they are disguised by logic. And as I'm recording this podcast, we've got a huge storm here. One of my dogs has got trauma that I'm working on actively when it comes to thunderstorms. Three of my dogs are rescues, so he goes into freeze state. And when he does that, he's literally stiffened. Like, you can't even move his limbs. Then my other dog, the smallest one of the three, goes into fawn mode, which he's just like, oh, I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat to you. I'm going to try to please you. And his ultimate weapon is when he's scared, he will roll on his belly and then he starts peeing like a fountain. And that's the fawn response in an animal. And then the third one is mostly flight, because whenever he's scared, he would just kind of go with his tail between his legs. So these kind of things in animals are easy to see and even sometimes laughable. But in humans, we can over-intellectualize that, self-sabotage, fear of success. We can give it all these like psychological labels, and nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we need to work in this way. But very often, the key to your success, the key to your next level in business actually sits in your body. So here's the thing. How do we regulate our nervous systems when we find ourselves in a state of dysregulation? Well, there's a plethora of techniques and options which possibly go well beyond the scope of this podcast. But let me just give you a very, very brief breakdown of what you can do. So, like, to put it down to the simplest possible terms, is you need to connect with here and now and with your physical body. So very often that perceived threat, where your nervous system goes into the survival mode, is actually rarely coming from right here, right now, and from presence. It's usually coming from some kind of scenario in our head that gets out of control. So I'll give you an example. This recent situation I had when I went into freeze state after like an unexpected volume of negativity and trolling on Instagram. And by the way, some of these trolls, and I think this is what really triggered that, were spiritual practitioners who did not understand my modality, so bashed it as a result. And I couldn't understand, why could you not just move on? Why do you have to be kind of so unkind whilst at the same time on your profile preaching love and light? But that's another story. So what was happening is this thing happened somewhere in the virtual reality. People who were, let's say, criticizing me or being mean to me, I never meet these people in my real life. I am here in my peaceful bubble in Costa Rica, surrounded by paradise in the rainforest, looking at the most beautiful surroundings with my lovely 3 dogs, with a beautiful, loving husband. Like, my body is not under threat. My safety is not under threat. So as soon as I connect back to my body, back to here and now, my nervous system will have a chance to react because it will get signals from what is safe. So you can connect with your body through breath, through movement, through touch. You can literally anchor into now by connecting with your physical senses, naming things you can hear, you can see. You can, of course, go a step further and do a whole plethora of vagus nerve reset exercises. And there's a lot of resources on that online. I don't need to go into the nitty-gritty of it. There's many techniques. Some of them I found very effective, some of them less so, but it's worth trying to find the one that works for you. But this is what happens in the moment of dysregulation. Now, that is the momentary dysregulation. Now we've got a more interesting thing, which is the real blocker of success, is when the energy field and nervous system are dysregulated on a more fundamental structural basis. And this is not just a quick survival mode in and out. This is something more systemic, and you may be even in that dysregulated state for months or even years where you just don't feel safe. And here's the important thing, which I want to really accentuate. And I know this episode is all about the nervous system and the importance of working with nervous system. But at the same time, nervous system work is not be all and do all of quantum business, because your nervous system is not detached from your energy field. Same with your body, is not detached from your energy field. And your energy field also needs to be worked on. And here's the thing. If you just work on nervous system, resetting your vagal nerve and kind of starting to feel better in your body, you can almost condition yourself to withstand the most harsh conditions. And this is almost like a path of learning tolerance to perceived pain or discomfort. And it's a valid path, but I believe there's a better one, which is going to the root cause of what is actually inside of your energy field. So for example, let's say you feel triggered by larger sums of money. And that is a real life example from just yesterday, from some work with a client who straight away thinking of a larger sum of money being received, went into a state of activation. Like for me, it's like, wow, that's great. It's a purely pleasurable situation where money comes into my energy field. But very often people are triggered. People are afraid to ask for large sums of money and have this kind of reaction. Now, if we just go down working with the nervous system, rehearsing the scenario, reconditioning the nervous system to feel safe, which is a very valid point. And by the way, rehearsing is the method. You could be rehearsing any scenarios within your nervous system. That's the most simple and effective method of working with it. But at the same time, if we don't look into the root cause of what is actually there, why does receiving a large sum of money in this particular case triggers that response, then we're never gonna get to the actual bottom of it. We're never gonna hit the nail on the head. And the beauty is that when you actually work with the energy field, with the energetic patterns, and when you hit the nail on the head, whether those patterns are ancestral, karmic, or collective, or from your own formative years, that is when you can get this work done once and for all. Because once you release an energetic pattern, it's one and done. It doesn't need to be repeated. You don't need to keep rehearsing. You don't need to keep reconditioning your nervous system, because you worked with the very core of the issue, with the very core of your energy field. And this is a subject of a whole new episode. This is the framework that I use all of the time in all of my programs, and especially within Radiance, which is my 6 months energetic of business program. And if you're listening to this episode before beginning of August, then you are invited to explore it, and perhaps this is something that we can go through together. But at the same time, I just want to say that nervous system is a really good start, but your nervous system is only signaling what's already in the field. And in my experience, the best way to actually shift out of any obstacles, of any problems, is first feel what the nervous system is telling us, because our energy field can communicate to us through our body and through our nervous system. But then when we detect what's actually activating ourselves, we need to go into the deep introspection mode and ask ourselves why. So like in this example with a client, why is it? It turned out to be a thing where she felt like she didn't deserve it. So then we ask again, why did she feel like she did not deserve it? And then we discovered something that happened in her childhood that caused this particular pattern of undeservedness. It was someone's jealousy and projection in this case. But that undeservedness for someone else could come from a completely different source. Like, for example, I don't know, some grandmother or grandfather all of a sudden coming to a very lucky windfall and feeling like no matter what, they didn't deserve it. Or I don't know, your mother married someone who was very financially well off, but spent the whole life trying to prove her worth because she felt like, it could be something like that. So you see how these energetic patterns work. There is always a root cause, and we need to get into very precise reason what that root cause is. And that is when we, as a next step, should work with the nervous system to actually rewire and recondition that nervous system. But at least when we take the root cause out of it, it's like taking the fuel out of fire. So that same situation shouldn't be even triggering that nervous system response. So this is basically it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I invite you to ask questions, leave comments, and I hope to see you on the next one. We'll definitely soon be delving into all the intricacies of energetic patterns in the context of business. I really look forward to spending more time explaining that, because that's super powerful. But for now, for today, I wish you all the best for the rest of the day. Keep those nervous systems regulated, and then once you get out of the pain and trauma and regulating the nervous system, then there is a whole heap of work waiting for you on the expansion side, where you can grow to hold more money, to hold more clients, to go beyond whatever seemed comfortable. And I wish you all of that and more. Sending you lots of love, and I'll see you on the next one.